That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Heretic! The fifth film directed by the directing duo Scott Beck and Bryan Woods, which premiered at the 2024 Toronto International Film Festival. A24 is releasing it November 8th, 2024.
These two have done movies before together?
Together and separately.
What's a movie they've done together?
Well, they did a film called Haunt that I remember seeing and not loving. They also directed a film called 65 that we reviewed, starring Adam Driver.
Oh,
that I remember not loving.
Well.
And here they are.
What is Heretic about? When two Mormon missionaries of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints attempt to convert an Englishman, it turns out to be far more dangerous than they could have expected. What's your pull quote?
If religion is an opiate for the masses, then the same might be said for cinema, as evidenced in Heretic, an ersatz existential religious horror film that comes in like a lion but goes out like a lamb.
Mine. If M. Night Shyamalan doing a remake of Martyrs sounds interesting to you, Heretic will be right up your alley. I'm saying M. Night Shyamalan because it feels a little kind of like it's going strong for a while and then there's some ridiculous nonsense that happens. Also, it's not ultra gory.
You know, the family-friendly horror of M. Night Shyamalan.
It's like a family-friendly version of Martyrs with a kind of corny twist, maybe.
Mm-hmm. What's ironic is this was financed by the Brigham Young University.
Really?
No.
Oh. Wow, that's pretty progressive.
It's just, we don't really see Mormons so front and center as we do here, so that's interesting.
Okay, the story is there are these two young ladies who are Mormon missionaries. Mm-hmm. They're played by
Sophie Thatcher and Chloe East.
And they are just doing their normal missionary rounds, just trying to spread the good word. But they also have a list of people who have reached out wanting information. So they go to a person whose address is on the list, played by Hugh Grant.
Mr. Reed.
And immediately things feel kind of weird. And because it's pouring rain outside, it's cold. They're just standing at the door while he's talking to them. And he's like, well, it's kind of wet. You can come inside. Well, we're not actually allowed to come inside unless there's a woman present. Do you have a female roommate? And he's like, I ain't got no roommate, but my wife is here. Oh, great. Okay, well, come on in. And they start talking and things get a little awkward. And the young ladies ask again, it'd be really great if your wife can join us. We need her to be here to continue. But then it becomes clear that he's not going to let them leave. The front door is locked. The thing that cues them to there being a problem is that he's saying his wife baked blueberry pie. And he keeps delaying on her coming. He also asked them a couple of odd questions. But then Sophie's character sees that the candle that he's burning is a blueberry pie candle. So now she's really freaked out. She tries to leave out the front door and the door won't open. So they ultimately have to go find him. And he's in this, it looks like a really big house when you first approach it. So they go into another room and we see this man has an altar built. Mm-hmm. It almost looks like the bookstore at the Philosophical Research Society. It's a cool space.
They're pews. Mm-hmm.
And then we get half an hour of, it fully reminded me of a religion 101 class I took my first year of college, Intro to World Religions. Mm-hmm. And it's very effective. I feel like I could have just listened to this 30-minute stretch mm-hmm. instead of taking that semester course.
Well, because it's kind of ideological sparring,
yes.
Almost. And to me, that's the meatiest part of this film.
I agree. And we'll get back to the specifics of it. But he's telling the girls, well, if you want to leave, you can leave. I'm not keeping you here. You just have to choose one of these doors to walk through.
Because the front door won't open again until morning. It's on a timer.
Right.
Because this old house has all these weird little idiosyncrasies about it.
Electrical idiosyncrasies. Mm-hmm. So the girls finally decide, young ladies decide that they're just going to walk through one of these doors. And we find out both doors lead to the same place, which is this dungeon in the basement. And then it's clear that they're in trouble. And what Hugh Grant's character is trying to do is he has who he's calling this prophet, this lady who looks like she's just a decrepit old lady.
She looked like something that crawled out of the walls of Wreck.
Yes, exactly. So he's telling the ladies via like a PA system, which is like an old phonograph basically, that this woman is going to die and be resurrected. Because part of the sparring they did earlier was about how like all these religions are just iterations and they all have some form of like a figure that dies and is resurrected. So I'm going to show you that now. So the lady eats a blueberry pie that's laced with
Nightshade and
belladonna.
Belladonna.
And she dies. But so then he's saying, watch, she's going to be resurrected. But while that's happening, the girl's like the young lady's missionary leader, played by Topher Grace,
Elder Kennedy,
who I swore was Josh Hamilton. He knocks on the door and interrupts. So they're screaming and Hugh Grant is distracted, but the elder guy, the missionary guy, ends up leaving. But while that's happening and the girls are distracted, that lady has been resurrected. Like, she's awake.
She's awake. She woke up.
So Hugh Grant comes downstairs like, see, it's a Christmas miracle. But Sophie's character is the more skeptical one. And she's saying, no, this is not true. And in the process, Hugh Grant kills her. But Chloe's character, she's more of the believer. And she seems more malleable. But all of a sudden, she gets into her Scooby-Doo and says, I think that this is fake. I think that you had like a trap door and a script and someone else moved the body. She even finds the trap door. She has a very elaborate answer. I don't know where she got these thoughts from, but Hugh Grant says, okay, well, if that's true, then why don't you go down that trap door? Because if what you're saying is true, then there should be a dead body down there. Because she's claiming that the bodies were switched. She goes down there and there is a dead body. And Hugh Grant locks her down there and says the one true religion is down there. So we get her walking through this corridor and she finally gets to a final room and there are all these women who look like the prophet we saw in like animal cages. And basically Hugh Grant says the one true religion is control.
And like
Janet Jackson.
Like Janet says, and now I got a lot.
Now I got lots of it. But no, so he's saying that all these people here, including you, are here because you let me put you here.
And why do you keep doing that?
But we found out earlier in the film, Sophie's character had found like a sharp letter opener and had pocketed it. And then she gave it to Sophie's character, saying, you should be the one to stab him because he wouldn't expect that from you. He's eyeballing me all the damn time. And then they come up with a safe word. And the safe word is magic underwear. Because earlier in the film, Sophie's character is harassed by these teenagers saying, oh, you Mormons wear magic underwear, and then pulls her skirt down. So...
But also magic underwear is what she's saying when she gets her throat slit by Hugh Grant.
Yeah, because Sophie was trying to get Chloe to stab him, but it was too late. But then, as Hugh Grant's kind of antagonizing her, like, you were so easy to control and you don't even know it. Like, look at you, you're out here selling Mormonism with your magic underwear. So he says the safe word and she stabs him in the neck. But then somehow he's still able to like chase her because she decides to like, she is able to escape and get back upstairs to like the main house. But for some reason she decides to go back downstairs because she sees this poster of like the 7 Infernos of Hell or something. Dante. And goes down there, like back down to where she was. And Hugh Grant stabs her in the belly.
Yeah, but with like a box cutter. It's not fatal.
It's not fatal, but then while she's laying there sort of bleeding and Hugh Grant's like crawling on top of her, presumably trying to kill her.
And then there's more talking.
And there's more talking and praying.
About prayer and if it works or not.
All of a sudden, Sophie's character is resurrected. Keep in mind that her throat was slit, bled all over. It had been down there for a while.
And he also cut through her upper arm and all the arteries in there.
Yeah, somehow she's able to get up and then hits Hugh Jackman in the head with a 2x4 that had nails in it, so kills him. And then we had also talked throughout the film this idea of like the butterfly dreams and like what's reality is like a motif, and we see butterflies. So the final scene is Chloe's character like breaking out of the house in the morning and getting to safety, presumably, when she sees a butterfly on her finger. but then the butterfly goes away. So I assumed that meant that she really had died. The end.
Which is interesting because it's about the process of resurrection or just mental perception.
I was with the film up until they get to the basement and that prophet comes down with the blueberry pie.
Once the prophet comes down with the pie, this thing takes it. Because at first I'm like, oh, this is good. We're going into this playing with death that, like Bergman's Seventh Seal or, and I think Jackman has, it's like he's a professor teaching us, which I really liked in talking.
Are you saying Hugh Jackman?
Sorry, Hugh Grant.
That's something I would do.
Talking about iterations, well, because the idea is more important than the man, right? I would think that we're supposed to start thinking about our own iterations about where the residuals of this story came from.
We'll get to the best part of the movie, but I just want to go through my notes. The opening is we see Sophie and Chloe's characters on a park bench or a bus stop bench, and they're just talking. And they're talking about Magnum condoms because there's an ad on the bus bench for condoms. And Chloe starts saying, I think that Magnum condoms are a myth. They're the same size as regular condoms. They're not. But she tells a story about how she saw a pornographic video that was like an amateur video. And during the filming, the people having sex were like caught kind of like they were told they were being too loud, and that the woman was mortified. Like you can see in her face, she was mortified. And so Chloe uses that story to say that's how you know the church is true, because this porno video, the woman was embarrassed by her actions.
It's evidence of the presence of God.
So, it makes Chloe seem like a very naive but sweet young lady. And Sophie, who seems to have a dark past that we never really get to, she's looking at her like, girl, first of all, what you doing watching pornos? And also, what in the hell are you talking about? But I thought that was an interesting start to establish these two girls' like dynamic.
Well, what's also interesting about that is you're listening to this conversation and then it right away creeps in where Chloe East says, just imagine somebody telling you that the Church of Latter-day Saints wasn't real.
Okay, so when they go to Hugh Grant's house and he invites them in and he brings them drinks, and of course you're like, oh, he's poisoned the drinks, and how come the wife's not coming out? Where's this damn blueberry pie? And then he's talking to them. First he asks about, like, he's asking personal questions like, where are you from? And Sophie's character seems more hesitant, but Chloe's an open book. But Sophie does reveal that her father died. And Hugh Grant's like, oh, well, how did he die? And he mishears her. He thinks she said blueberry disease. So he starts laughing. But then she's like, no, I said Lou Gehrig's disease. And I thought, oh, that was like the writing had me going for a minute. Like, oh, this is kind of clever and funny and uncomfortable.
I think that's what it gets. That's what it does the best, is kind of the discomfort, minding the discomfort of this scenario, which is very instinctual, but yeah, then it falls off a cliff.
Well, because then we lead into, he says, I want to ask you an uncomfortable question. Is that okay? And they're like, well, we won't know till you ask us. And then he starts talking about polygamy and how the Mormon church used to
practice it,
but then they said that Revelations, like they use Revelations as a reason to stop practicing it. But Hugh Grant's saying he believes that was just a way for bad people to excuse their bad behavior. And then I thought, oh, this is getting interesting, because maybe this is what I wanted the movie to be. I was hoping that we were going to get this man who just wanted to school these missionaries. Like, y'all come knocking on my door thinking you're going to convert me. I'm going to make you just as uncomfortable as you make me feel. I'm going to trap you the way you make me feel trapped when you approach me this way. And ultimately lets them leave unharmed. And then maybe the final scene is like, they go to the police. And the police were like, well, you knocked on his door. He invited you in. He let you leave. Were you ever in handcuffs? Okay, well then no harm, no foul.
Kind of like the opposite of Knock Knock with Keanu Reeves, which is a remake of a 70s film with Sandra Locke, of course, but where the two young women show up to ruin the life of this married man that's alone for the weekend. Like that, but
oh, sure.
But by the end of the weekend, there's this, violent transformative experience that happens.
So after the uncomfortable question, after they insist that he go get his wife and he's gone for a long time, then Sophie's character sees that there's a blueberry pie scented candle, so she gets freaked out, tries to open the door, can't. It's during that time that Hugh Grant, because he had taken their coats, and these two young ladies had locked their bikes up at his front gate with like a bike lock, and the key was in Sophie's coat. So while he was making them wait and they were freaking out, he went to go take their bikes. And then he put the key to the bike lock in Chloe's coat to kind of freak them out. But really, he knew that Chloe would be like the last one standing. But anyway, this all leads to them being forced to go deeper into the house. And that's when they get into this like altar. And that's where things, I think, that was the most interesting part, even though, like I said, it did feel like Religion 101. Like, it feels clever unless you've already heard these concepts. And it's like, okay, I mean, this is an interesting conversation between two people because Sophie challenges him. Like, you're saying that all these religions are iterations of one another. And he uses the board game Monopoly because he says that game was actually stolen, the idea, from a previous game that was created by a woman called the Landlord's Game.
Yes.
And then he pulls out like the Torah and the Quran and the Bible, and he's saying that all these are iterations just like Monopoly. And then he pulls out this janky version of Monopoly to represent the Book of Mormon. So it was...
The Bob Ross.
Yeah, the Bob Ross version of Monopoly.
Doesn't he say it's
The silly fringe
the silly
version.
local version?
Yeah. But up to that point, like that exchange, and then when Sophie sort of claps back at him, I thought, okay, I think at this point, I'm hoping that we get more of her backstory because she seems very clever. A little too clever to be doing what she's doing right now.
As in going door to door, peddling religion.
Yes. Not that I'm trying to say bad things about it. It just seems like she wouldn't be the kind. And I think I need a little bit more about her to understand why she's doing this. Because she's very skeptical about everything. Whereas Chloe's character seems like the perfect person. She's sweet. She seems like a devout believer. So I think that started to throw me off.
And then I don't quite understand how, I think you heard about it, Hercule Poirot, she suddenly seems to put all the pieces together, even after her brain has been awash in adrenaline for God knows how long, and how you're able to have a cohesive thought.
Well, that's after Sophie's character gets killed. That's when I said she Scooby-Doos it. But yeah, it's very... I can never say that name. Say it again.
Hercule Poirot?
Yeah, she just goes, oh, the chef in the library with the candlestick. I mean, whatever. It just felt too convenient. And I don't know where she got these ideas from. How did she think that Hugh Grant wrote a script? And how would she know that there's like a secondary escape route?
It becomes a bit too convenient and also just a little bit over the top for kind of what seems like a really well-established narrative up until that point.
Yeah, because, well, a really creepy moment is when the two ladies walk into the altar room and they're saying, can you help us get out? Like, the front door won't open. And he goes, the front door won't open again. And that kind of sent chills down my spine. Because then it's like, oh, so not only are they really in trouble, but he's done this before. Because during his little rant about religious iterations, because he also gives the example of, there's a song by the Haleys.
The Hollies.
The Hollies.
Who are probably best known for, what, Long Cool Woman in a Black Dress?
Well, I didn't even know their name, so I don't know. But anyway.
Their song, The Air That I Breathe.
The Air That I Breathe, Creep used components of that song and didn't give credit. So
Radiohead.
The Radiohead made a song called Creep, and the Hollies sued them. But then Radiohead sued Lana Del Rey for using components of Creep. So he tells that story along with the Monopoly story.
And how about, well, one of the really good lines is everything just an ancient echo of something true.
Yes.
All these religions. And then when we get to the finale, when the ultimate religion is control, to me, I really like that resonance, is that these ancient echoes of something true are all of these things that we fabricated that are religious, that are meant to control us. And how Mr. Reed is kind of the antithesis of control. Like, what happens when you aren't allowing yourself to be controlled? Like, what do you do?
There are interesting themes, and so I would applaud this screenplay for that. After Hugh Grant kills Sophie because he's saying she'll be resurrected.
And then, then right away, he slits her throat, and then right away he's like, oh, wait, never mind, she's not going to be resurrected. He starts digging around in her arm.
He had seen earlier that she had like a tiny little like indentation or raised area in her arm. And so he literally cuts open her arm and starts digging around in there, pulls out a blood vessel, and then he pulls out...
He goes, oh, that's a vein.
And then he goes, oh, see, here's an implant. She's a simulant. And that's when he talks about the butterfly dream and talking about how some people can't cross over into reality. And that's why Sophie didn't resurrect. And then I thought, okay, this is getting crazy. Like, this just...
Yes, but just very personally, my interest took a huge nosedive in this film at that point. Even though and then, you start wondering, what is the motive of this man? Is he going to make one or both of these young women one of these prophets that he holds in a dog cage in the basement? Is this his MO, that he gets religious representatives to come over so he can, play with his food? Does it matter if they're women?
Well, the reason I reference martyrs is because their mission, this religious group who are torturing people to see if they can reach martyrdom and tell them if there is like an afterlife. So they had a purpose. Mm-hmm. There was a function to this. But for Hugh Grant's character, like you said, I'm unclear what experiment he's doing. What is he getting from it? Because it seems like he doesn't believe, like he faked the resurrection of the first prophet.
Right.
And then he only killed Sophie to get her out of the way because he knew he couldn't control her.
Right.
So then it's like, yeah, what are you doing with these malnourished, vitamin D deficient, like, I mean, just these like zombies in cages.
And for how long?
I mean, clearly he's saying for control, but like then I feel like I need to know a little bit more about him. Like, was he an abused altar boy? Like, I don't understand.
But just for your own personal edification, like, what are they doing? Like, what do you do with him? To me, it's kind of like the more intimate version of Speak No Evil, where there's this need to lure these people in your home to use them, but then ultimately for what purpose?
My final note is I thought that Sophie, that actor,
Thatcher,
she reminded me of Léa Seydoux.
Okay, sure. Yeah, she has that nice wide, smooth face.
But I liked both ladies. I thought Hugh Grant was a lot of fun.
Hugh Grant is a lot of fun, and I guess technically you could say he's cast against type because he's usually not villainous.
Really? I kind of find him to be kind of smug all the time.
Smug doesn't mean villainy,
No,
though.
but I feel like he could settle into a role like this very easy. Mm-hmm. Like, against type to me implies, like, could they pull it off? And I think that I'm not surprised that he pulled this role off very well.
No. Sophie Thatcher, you've actually seen several times. She was in Maxine earlier this year. She was the one doing the FX that has that creepy... She's creeped out in that moment. Yeah. She's also in Yellow Jackets.
I liked her.
I believe she's the young Juliette Lewis character, if I'm remembering that correctly. And Chloe East, you've seen also. She had a small part in The Fabelmans recently.
Okay.
I think it looks really good, especially for being stuck so long in this kind of dank, dismal environment. It's shot by a great contemporary cinematographer, Chung-hoon, who works a lot with Park Chan-wook. You've seen his work before as well. But again, I think it should make you start questioning, like, what are the iterations what this film is reminding you. And I think you could say this film and this game that's going on, this storytelling game, really goes all the way back to Arabian Nights, where Scheherazade has to tell stories to keep herself alive.
Well, I was thinking it reminded me of the Jigsaw movie, the Saw movies, except that, I mean, Jigsaw seems more pious than Hugh Grant's character. Because at least he's trying to give people the option to, like, redeem themselves and get away. It seems like Hugh Grant's character, but again, I don't understand what his motive is.
Well, yeah, at least Jigsaw seems to have, the very clear motive, even though he's very repetitive and never strays from that course. And where do you get all these resources from? One of the iterations that's happening is Sister Paxton, Chloe East, says, I know that the only way out is in. And Hugh Grant tries to asks her where she got that because she doesn't know the original source materials, and she's like, Swamp Thing, which I think is funny because that's Wes Craven, and Wes Craven recycled that himself in People Under the Stairs, that very same line. But I don't know. Again, I enjoy this. I would much rather see something like this in cinemas, but I was highly disappointed at the sharp left that I feel like it takes. It's a gamble that doesn't pay off to me.
What would you give Heretic?
3.
I still think it's worth a watch. I would give it 3 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.